Okay, I have to start talking. It's driving me crazy. Okay. I can't stay here with all this going on in my head. Okay, so I did all the intro this afternoon, and now I want to kind of focus us all with the intention of beginning spiritual direction and taking us on the journey into the soul. I developed a course on spiritual direction because I believe the need in people now is so very profound. I truly, deeply believe that we are craving the sacred. And I think there's a craving within us for holy listening, for finding a way to experience an inner silence that is sacred, to find a way within ourselves to a quietude, mystical quietude is how Teresa of Avila put it. Mystical quietude. It is a place of interior, it's past silence, and it's past just quiet, deep breathing. It's a mystical quietude that transcends it's relaxing because you're stressful, or the relaxation you get because you're listening to birds sing. And mystical quietude is where your whole being makes contact with something holy that is fragrant, something that embraces you, not because you're in pain, not because you have some kind of crisis you're trying to solve, not because it's the antithesis, the opposite of being traumatized, but because there's something organically, sacredly natural to feeling holy. That you don't seek out this divine place because you're trying to find a solution to a problem. It's not always problem solving. It's not always because you're traumatized or in pain. It's because it's natural. It's simply your natural place inside. 99% of the people that I have met in my life as a teacher, and now as a kind of a mystic out of a monastery, have asked me about God because they're in pain, not because they're in wonder, not because they're in divine enchantment, but because they're in pain, they're in crisis, they're trying to solve something, but not because they have been smitten by something holy.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with the connection.
What is that? What is that? What is that? Please don't put that on. Can you please respect this enough to have that off?
Sorry, I might have broke my mistake.
What I know about all of us is that we have a soul, and that within us is a searching, seeking, sacred force. And that force is drawn to truth. Beyond what you think, beyond what you know, that force in and of itself compels you. And when it hears truth, it stops to listen. It stops to listen. And when it witnesses truth, it can bring you to your knees. When we've absorbed enough that is not truth, we fall into pain and despair and depression. And that is also the truth. That there is something in us that when we are around, when we absorb within us, around us, incidents that vibrate with falseness. It doesn't matter if we say, I can't bear to see it anymore, because that doesn't stop the vibration of it. It still penetrates. And after a while, because the soul is an instrument of truth, some part of us will collapse in grief. And we will absorb that. We will absorb that. It's against our nature to deceive ourselves. It's against our nature to not be honest with ourselves. It is against our nature to not move in integrity. That your sacred nature, the part of you that is sacred, is a part that is compelled to move toward faith. Don't confuse this with religion. But to have faith in something greater than yourself. To know something greater commands this universe. You thrive on hope. On hope. And there is a need in your nature to be charitable. These are the three graces. Your heart, your being, thrives on compassion, on charity, on generosity. It is unnatural to shut that off in you. It takes effort for you to shut down that part of you that senses the vulnerability in another human being. You have to work at that. You have to work at not intuiting another person. You are not gifted as an intuitive. It is natural to be an intuitive. You are not gifted. Nothing is more natural than to read the sensitivities of another human being. Nothing is more natural. Nothing is more ordinary than to sense the vulnerableness of another human being. What is unnatural is to not respond to it. That is unnatural. To make the choice to tell yourself you did not sense another human being. That is a lie. You always sense another person, especially when they are weak, when they are fragile, when they are in need. We are designed to sense each other. Don't ever tell yourself you do not. Ever. Now, how you decide to handle your sensitivities, that's another thing. But you were born to sense each other. This is the design of the soul. One of the reasons we do holy listening where you quiet yourself and you say, God, I'm listening for you. I'm listening for you. I'm listening. And the reason you pray is that you don't pray for things, Jesus. You pray, God, give me the strength to be what I am, to be able to sustain my sensitivities, to be able to sustain the fact that I sense other people. I sense them. And if I cannot respond, let me at least send them grace. Let me at least do that much. Because you are that sensitive. And if you don't start taking care of this in yourself and recognizing, as we'll talk about now, how delicately you are designed, then you will contrive an illness to protect yourself. You will design anxiety, depression, some hyper-nonsense sensitivity as a way of keeping others away from you instead of saying, whew, look at this fabulous design. I sense everything. I sense it. Now I have to manage it. And this is where understanding that this is an impersonal universe. You sense everything, which doesn't mean you're responsible for everything. That's nonsense. This is where you have to grow up. I sense a lot, but I'm not responsible to change it. I'm not responsible for your grief. I'm not responsible for your pain. What I can help you with, I help you with. But I'm not responsible to make anything in your life better. You are. Carefully learn how to work with yourself and with how this universe is put together. Pity is a ridiculous, ridiculous emotion. You never feel sorry for anyone, especially yourself. That is the devil's weapon. It's quicksand. It's psychic quicksand. You should have a bargain with a friend that says, if I ever fall into self-pity, put my head in a bucket of ice water and leave the room. Never, ever indulge me if I fall into pity. Trust someone enough to have that bargain with them. That if I ever fall into that, if you ever hear it come out of my mouth, put my head in ice water and walk out of the room. But never talk to me, never indulge me if you see self-pity on my face or coming out of my mouth. Do we have an agreement? Have someone. That is a spiritual director. Don't ever let me feel sorry for myself. No. And if you are going to have that arrangement and you think, but I have to have some self-pity, then it's Tuesday afternoon for 15 minutes. I'm not kidding you. Do you think I'm kidding you? This is your life we're dealing with. This is your life. Your life. We're not playing Monopoly here. Okay, so. Now. And you thrive on the miraculous. The seriously miraculous. Someone asked me on break about miracles, and so I'm going to tell you this about miracles. One of the topics that really motivated my graduate work in theology was, the nature of saints and miracles. What is that inner world? How do these things happen? Do they really happen? How does the non-physical world intervene in the physical? What's out there? Because let's face it, sometimes when you pray, you feel like I'm talking to air and what's out there, and But when I was in college, my college is a convent, and I witnessed extraordinary things, and and extraordinary faith. And these girls weren't crazy. I loved the nuns, and they weren't crazy. They were remarkable. And their faith was remarkable, and I loved every single moment of being with these girls. And so what made these, miracles happen? And my college was founded by a group of French nuns in 1840. So, miracles do happen. So what is a miracle, right? So all these decades go by and I study. You can't figure that out in books. You can't go at the soul through study. It's just, you could beat your head silly, right? There comes a point where you realize, like Teresa of Avila, that either heaven comes to get you or it doesn't. Either something profound, you have to experience something so unreasonable that you finally give up the ghost. That you finally are willing to lead a completely unreasonable life. And it's okay with you. It's okay. Where reason stops being your major coordinate. When I was doing a book tour for Entering the Castle, I was getting all dressed up to go and give my first lecture. And it was a big deal for me because up until that time, I would never teach anything on prayer. I would never teach anything on anything like this at all, ever. But I had an experience I had a very profound experience in which I was teaching, my own institute teaching. And I was sitting on a stool like this, and I had a group of my students, and all of a sudden I felt this I actually experienced blacking out, beginning like this. And I had previously in my office, about 2 months earlier, I was working on Invisible Acts of Power, which was a book that changed my life. I'm kind of telling this piecemeal, but I realized I should have put this part in before. And there was something profound about that book for me, in which I realized how powerful you were. And that was the book that changed my life when it came to how I would spend the rest of my life and what I would teach. And that was the book that did it. I could spend our whole time together just telling you how much that changed my life. This very simple book. But in that book, I realized when I asked people to just share stories of how they had been of service to others and how others had been of service to them. That's a very simple question. For almost 1,400 people responded within 4 or 5 days to me on little stories on my internet, and I read them all. Okay, first, I never read so many personal emails in my life in such a short period of time. Every one of these stories, every single one, hit me in the heart. I wasn't prepared for that. It was like a battering ram. 2, every one of these stories was like someone said, "Oh, I can't wait to tell you this." 3, every one of these stories was about someone telling me how someone had changed their life, and that change just simply continued. These stories were alive. They were human scripture. And what makes scripture scripture is, as opposed to just a book, is that scripture channels grace. It channels grace, which is why when you read it, you are inspired. It's not like reading a history book. Scripture channels grace. And when I read these stories, I felt because there was human truth to it, but not just truth. Something profound had happened in every one of these lives. Something extraordinary, something profound. And in some of the cases that they were telling me about, they experienced a stranger who happened to show up just at a certain time, but then was gone just at a certain time. This young boy said that he left home because he was, it was just like his parents didn't understand it. So he's walking in his town and he hears psst, psst. So he looks and here's this homeless man in rags. And this kid's about 14, 15 or 13, something like that. This homeless man goes psst, psst. And he looks and he says, "Sonny, come here. Would you help me out? I've got to walk over there." And he said he stood there. And he looks around to see if anybody's watching, because what if they saw him go near that homeless man? What would they think? So he looks at this homeless man saying, "Come here, would you help me out?" And he looks around. Now, I'm going to hit a pause button. Heaven tests you just like this. Choose sides. Choose sides. Everything in him went, what will they say? Look at him. What will they say? Look at him. So he decides to go with the homeless man. So he comes over, and here's this homeless man. No food, nothing. And the homeless man grabs hold of his arm and says, "Well, I just have to go over there." So they start walking. And the homeless man says, "Do you live around here?" He says, "Yeah, I do, but my parents don't understand me." And he says, "Well, what's wrong?" He says, "Well, they just think this and that and da-da-da-da." And he says, "Well, problems work out. You just have to be patient with your parents." And he says, "Well, I don't know." He says, "No, really, you do. And they love you, don't they love you?" He said, "Do you have a nice home?" "Well, I do, yeah." He says, "Do you have 3 meals a day?" "Yeah, I do." And here's this homeless man who's got nothing, propping up this kid. Okay, so they get to this bench, and they sit down. He just wanted to go to another bench, from one bench to another. So they sit down at this bench, and this kid says, "God, I'm hungry." He says to a homeless man who has no food. And the homeless man looks at him and says, "Uh-huh." And he says, "Oh," he says, you want a McDonald's or something?" He said, "That'd be great." And then he looks at this homeless man and he says, "Oh, I'll buy it." So he goes and they both get a hamburger. And then this kid says, "Maybe I'll go back home." And I guess he says, "Maybe my parents aren't so bad." He says, "Well, things will work out." He says, "You're right. I bet they do." He says, "I bet they will." And he says, "Thanks a lot." He says, "Anytime." And then he says to this guy, "Well, what are you going to do now?" He says, "I'll wander to another bench." And he looks at him and he says, "Hey, thanks a lot." He says, "Anytime." And he goes home. Well, he goes home and he tells his parents, because he was a different kid when he got there for some reason. He wasn't so angry at them. Everything was right. And his mother says, "Well, what happened to you?" And he says, "I met this extraordinary man." Didn't tell her that he was in rags and all this. But after saying how extraordinary he was and what they talked about, then mentions, "Oh, by the way, he was homeless and he was hungry. And then he says, all I talked about was me." And his mother says, "Go get him." Who was he? They never found him. One story like this after another. One story. As I put this together, as the days went by, I would get choked up thinking what I thought was heaven is as present as all the holy stories have always said. It's we who've gone blind. It's we who've... And as I had that thought, that one afternoon in my office, I looked over and all of a sudden this bright light hit and I had a grand mal seizure. It was lights out when I was on the floor. And when I came to, I thought, oh dear. And I could feel like my wires were shifted a little bit. And so now I'm going forward to this event in my classroom. And I felt that funny feeling happen. And I thought, uh-oh. And I said, in a prayer, I said, oh no, not here. Don't do this. And then the room went silent and I couldn't hear any of you. I could not hear a thing. It was as if I was put in this silent bubble. And then I heard the words, follow me, daughter. And I snapped. And I thought, what? And I knew it was the voice of Teresa of Avila. And it was the only time I ever heard. That's all I ever heard. But I knew it. I knew it. And that began my what I call my Teresa time. That changed everything in my life. Everything. Nothing has been the same since. Everything changed. I shifted what I wrote. I shifted what I teach. I shifted everything. Absolutely everything. And the world turned upside down for me in that moment, and from that moment on. My coordinates became inside out first. So when I teach about this world, believe me, I'm not teaching Catholic, but I am teaching mystical. And when I talk now about directing your soul and directing you, about the times, about how much you matter, and how much you should matter to you, and how much every choice you make needs to be considered carefully, including what you think is important to be upset about. I ask you to take this seriously, that you need to change the bar, that the bar you have on what really matters needs to get very high, and the bar on what is significant for you you need to become very elitist about what's significant. Like, unless something is a matter of life or death, it should not draw your spirit out of you. What matters is how strong you make yourself, so that nothing can call you out of yourself. Certainly not somebody going like this, or using a certain tone of voice. That you would have to say, I have to process this because I don't like what you said to me. If you're not strong enough to be able to dismiss these things, then you have to go look in the mirror and say, what the hell's wrong with you? What is wrong with you that you are so weak that a comment someone makes requires a conversation? What is wrong with your ego? What is that you're so fragile? What's going on here? Now, what's a miracle? One of the reasons, I think the main reason people do not experience ego, I'm going to ask you a question. How many of you need validation for who you are? You don't? Nothing, okay. I don't believe you, but that's fine. Okay. That's not what your energy says, but that's fine. Okay, how many of you need approval? Okay, all right, so how many of you need attention? How many of you, so you have not one need? Zero. No, you can't do that. Can't do that. You have to answer as I ask. Okay, I'm sure you're okay, but you have no needs.
I do have these yet.
Okay, well, that's good. We've got that going. Okay, I got that much out of you. Okay. What do you need validation for?
To be good enough?
To be good enough for whom?
Yeah, that's the question.
No. Answer it. You get 1 minute, 1 second. Be good enough for whom? Make something up, but go ahead. 1, 2, 3, hurry.
Actually, for everybody, I guess. It's
No, everybody's too big. I'm an everybody, and I don't care what you do. If you need that much validation, you can't answer the question, you're in trouble.
yeah, probably.
No, go ahead.
To feel good enough, I think it's like for the people that you care about most, but probably for myself too.
You can't answer with a question mark. This is your life. You have to answer with a period. This is why I need validation. Because I can't get up in the morning and put my clothes on without thinking somebody thinks I'm a good person.
I can't remember, I think that in the morning, but I do notice, but it goes unconsciously.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah.
I'd say, because I want my life to feel that it has purpose.
And you need other people to tell you your life has purpose.
Maybe because I'm not convinced myself.
You're not convinced your life has purpose, so if someone else says you have purpose, by God you do. Oh, righty then. All right, what else have I got? Yeah. I beg, darling.
I want to be loved.
You want to be loved by whom? Everybody? Somebody? Who? By most people, but not all people. Okay, but by most people. By everyone in the room?
Yes.
Okay, well that's not going to happen, so all right, so screw that goal. What else have you got? Okay, yeah, all right, so, wait. Go ahead.
I think I want to be loved by my parents.
You want to be loved by your parents?
Yes. And if somebody else says he loves me, they think I'm special, so I'm always surprised and oh why? But I think I actually want to be loved by my parents.
And your parents don't love you?
No, I don't think so.
You mean they don't love you the way you want to be loved? Let me be clear here.
I'm sorry,
They don't love you in the way you would like to be loved.
That's also right, but I don't feel the love.
You don't feel the love. Okay. You know, one time, somebody, well, never mind. You know, I settle those things so easy. I see, it's just like me, but this is me. To go up to them and say, look, you love me a lot, so knock it off and walk out. I'm telling you, I'm so past the game stage, and it's so refreshing. Now, with miracles, I don't go through these exercises to amuse you. I want to point something out. The need for attention, the need for validation, these are like first and second floor needs. They're very basic physical, but they're physical needs. They're the kind of needs that actually stop you from being you. They stop you. They stop you from being you. They stop you from being able to have a relationship with your holy self. They prevent that from you being a clear intuitive, from getting clear guidance. Because what you will do is you will get a clear intuitive hit, but then you will say, what will they say? And you'll block it. And you will block it. Because they, like that boy standing there, they, whoever they are, will always win. Instead of the dirty angel. The angel disguised as a homeless person. You'll never have the courage to go help the angel. Because you'll always think, what will they say? So you'll never have that extra drop of courage to say, what do I care what they have to say? In this moment, heaven is calling me, and I have to go. And what they say, I can't let they have any authority over me anymore. Now let me put this in terms of a miracle. A miracle is when heaven bends the laws of nature just for you. I said, when I was on my book tour for Entering the Castle, on the first day that that book tour began, I was in Boston, and I was getting ready for my lecture, and I heard on the news, they have these taglines, you know, for the next story, so that you stay there when they run the commercial, you know, like, do dogs fly? We'll see in a minute, you know. And so, you know, this kind of thing. But in this case, they said, do miracles really happen? Well, stay tuned. And so I came out and I sat there, and it turned out my college was founded by these French nuns. And the foundress was in the process of sainthood. It goes from beatification to canonization. And you have to wait for a miracle, and they have to prove it was a miracle. And it turned out that was the miracle they were talking about. And there was a man who had lost 90% of his vision, and he went to the college, and there's a beautiful church on campus. And he went and he prayed in that church, and he prayed to the foundress, who, of course, died in the 1800s. But everyone in the area knew that she was beatified, and a miracle had happened there. And this is exactly his prayer. He wasn't a Catholic then, by the way. And he said, I could use your help. If you have any influence up there, I'd appreciate it. That was his prayer. And he left the church. Isn't that great? That was his whole prayer, and he left. And the next day, his eyes still gray, just gray with this thick cataract and 20/20 vision. And the doctor said, this is impossible. 20/20. So they reported this to the church, and it got back to Rome, and they flew him to the Council of Miracles, and it was totally examined. It was declared a miracle, and she was canonized the 8th American saint. And of course, I'm watching this on TV, and there was Sister Kevin, a nun I knew, and the CNN reporter shoves a microphone in her face and says, so, sister, what is a miracle? Hoping that Kevin would say, And Kevin says, oh, well, that's when, she says, there's mystical laws that govern this universe. And a miracle is when God bends the laws of science and interjects the mystical laws just for you. And this reporter says, and we'll be right back. Oh my God, it was so perfect. It was so perfect. But that's exactly what it is now. The main reason why such experiences are so rare is because of a person's need for approval, of because a person does not have the backbone to have an experience that can't be proven. Because a person needs other people to validate their life. And nothing is more rare than a miracle. It is an experience that only you have, that you can't prove. And it's so high voltage and so rare that it changes your entire reality around you and within you. And if you cannot sustain the voltage of that, where no one around you is witness to what you've experienced on the inside, much less the outside, where it is more likely that people will say, you were never sick. You must be crazy. You didn't experience that. Something must be wrong with these papers. Must be the wrong blood test. Where in fact, your sanity will be questioned. You. The only thing that saved that man's from being questioned is the fact that his eyes are still gray. So he's got the phenomenon still in his eyes. But if you were filled with cancer and suddenly you weren't, they would simply say the records were wrong. So you would be the problem. You would. And if you didn't have the stamina of soul to be able to say, I know what I experienced, and I don't need validation from anybody. Now, very few people could do that. Very few people have the stamina to be able to sustain an experience and all of its consequences by themselves. Most people would collapse under the consequences, which is, how dare you not believe me? And the rage and the anger that would follow would be a disease upon itself. Do you understand me? One of the crises that people experience on the journey of the spiritual path is, how conscious do I want to be? Because this becomes quite a choice here. I don't know if I want to sustain this level of truth by myself. As you get up on the floors, your view becomes more and more extended, but fewer neighbors.
There is no other option.
I beg your pardon, I can't hear you.
Once you're moving up, there is no other option. I mean, you can't force yourself staying down.
Well, Muktananda said, don't get started on the spiritual path, but once you do, don't get off. You can't get off, but this is where you find yourself thinking, this is where the prayer life comes in. It's because you're not sustained by, and I am convinced people have used therapy to sustain their spiritual path, and it doesn't work. Because it's not an illness. You don't have an illness. You need a practice, but you don't have an illness. You need to understand how, what it is the spiritual path requires. You need to ask yourself the right questions. You need to do the right practices. So I have a couple of questions I want to ask you this evening. Okay, now if I had you as a directee, you would be in my office.
What is a directives?
I'm a spiritual director. You are my directee, my client. Okay, but I don't like that word. You would come to see me, and we would begin a dialogue. And I would want to find out how you constructed your soul. I would want to find out the coordinates of you, of how you are organized, how you've organized your relationship with the sacred. It's vitally important for me to know that on a one-to-one basis. It's vitally important. It's vitally important for you to know that. For you to know that. For you to ask yourself some truly profound questions about, I'm not really sure because I've never asked myself that. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and even I'm so generous that I've provided some answers. So you get to actually select one. What are you spiritually seeking? First answer, an intellectual spiritual life. Second answer, a prayerful life. Third, a path of answers and resolutions. Fourth, a path of inner peace. Fifth, nothing and everything. Put it down. Yes, I can read them again. What are you, now, and mind you, I want you to take a deep breath here and center yourself. And just take a deep breath and go like this, and just listen to me very deeply. Hover over me, God. Hover over me, God. Take me down deep into the reason you gave me life. Take me down deep. Take me past my mind. Take me into the reasons you gave me life. Reveal some part of that to me. Let me listen with holiness and silence. Let me listen with deep quiet. I don't want to think about this. I want to hear you. I stand here, your servant, quiet, humble. I am listening, Lord. Take me down deep. And now, what am I seeking? Lord, what am I seeking? Do I want an intellectual, spiritual life? Do I want a prayer life? Do I want a prayer life? A prayerful life? Do I want a path of answers and resolutions? Maybe I'm looking for that. I'm thinking my way to you. Do I want a path of inner peace? What does inner peace mean? I don't even know what it means, but is that what I'm looking for? What does that mean? Does that mean I'm living a life of conflict? What does that mean? Or am I looking for nothing and everything at the same time because I don't know what I want? What am I doing, Lord? I am responding to some call. Why? What am I seeking? Next, do I know the difference between what I need and what I want? Do I know the difference? Lord, what do I need And what do I want? How can I tell the difference? What do I need in life? And what do I want from life? Name one thing I need and one thing I want. And what is the difference? Now, I have another question. Faith is a funny kind of thing. So one of the first things I would ask you, if you were sitting with me in my office, is not tell me what you believe. I would ask you, tell me with absolute conviction what you do not believe. Because there, I would see how much faith you have. Because telling me what you don't believe, then I know you have faith in something. Because you have absolute faith in what you don't believe. So it tells me you're capable of faith. So put down 3 things you absolutely know you do not have faith in. You absolutely know for sure, I do not have faith in these 3 things. But you know are not true. I don't believe this, I don't believe that, and I don't believe this. So far as God is concerned. Like, I don't believe God is a man, I don't believe God eats popcorn, whatever it is. Whatever it is that you absolutely know. You don't have faith in. Maybe something you used to, Catholics they used to have to believe that Catholics were the only people in heaven. Scared the hell out of me then. So you know what it's like to have faith. At least you know that I know how to have faith. Now it's what do I have faith in? Name one thing you would like to have faith in. You would like to believe is true. You would like to believe it. But you don't. You just can't quite get yourself. You'd like to believe it's true. Like Santa Claus. And my last question is, it may not be my last, but this is that question. On a personal note, how many of you are healing something, actively healing anything from physical illness? Anybody? Anybody in physical? Okay, physical, yes? Okay, are the rest of you in any kind of healing journey of any kind? Well, okay, okay. All right, just wanted to know if there was that going on. Okay, got that. Now, number 2, how many of you have an active spiritual practice where you really participate every day, no matter what, rain or shine? Your spiritual practice is an active devotion. You just don't do emergency prayer because, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Okay, how many of your practices are Buddhist? How many of your practice, what kind of other practice, how many have a Christian kind of practice? Okay, how many of you have a Hindu? Okay, Muslim, Islam? Druid. Druid, okay. Have I left out something? What? Clairvision. Okay.
Shamanism.
Shaman, okay.
Gratefulness.
Say?
Gratefulness.
Gratefulness, okay.
Spiritual without any religion.
Okay, got it, spiritual, okay.
Course in Miracles.
Okay, that's Christian. Well, Jesus kind of hung out in Judeo-Christian waters.
You don't have to be Christian to participate.
No, but, all right. Whatever. Okay. Okay, why is that hard for you to see that?
Because traditionally I come from a Jewish background, but I really resonate with the material of the Course in Miracles, and Marianne Williamson, who would teach that to me,
Yeah.
also still very much connected to her Judaism, but she completely gets the Course in Miracles, and she's taught it as it's not a Christian ideology.
No, it's not a Christian ideology. No, no. Neither, well, Jesus wasn't a Christian, so. Yeah, tell the church that. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's a shock to a lot of Christians, but. Okay, what else have I got? How many of you have no practice whatsoever? Now, how come half your hands go up when I ask what your prayer, and then you have, yes?
I don't have a practice, I would say, although I feel grateful for things,
Okay.
but I don't sit down and meditate.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. What about the rest? I mean, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
It wasn't daily, that's why.
It wasn't daily. Okay, how many of you, it's not daily, but you kind of every now and again? It's, all right, it's semi-regular, okay, every now and again it's, yeah, okay, all right, okay, all right. All right, one last. Any atheists? Would you dare admit it? Okay, got it. All right, okay. So, it's all right. So when I asked you about what you're sure you do not believe, what'd you say? Just for fun.
AMA.
Say?
AMA.
AMA.
American Medical.
Oh, okay. You don't believe in the AMA. Oh, you don't have faith in them. Okay, no faith in the AMA. What else have I got? The devil? Someone said devil? Oh, I do. Oh, honey. Oh, honey.
The bed is the lowest stair of the light, so I believe there is no division in good and bad, but it's just the stair of the lowest. The lowest stair of the light is the darkness.
Yeah, and?
So the devil is the lowest stair of. But there's no division of good or bad. It's just like the building, the lowest floor is the bed.
Well, let me tell you, that lowest floor creates a lot of havoc.
Yeah.
And that's the demon. There's not a gargoyle that splits that spits pea soup, if that's what you think, but believe you me.
Yeah, but I don't believe in that's God and the devil. You know,
Yeah.
it's not good and bad. It's
Right.
you know, it's a whole range of
Yes,
yeah.
right, there's a whole big hierarchy. There's nature spirits, and there's this and that,
Yeah.
and then there's them. Okay, what else you got?
I don't believe that God is vengeful and wrathful.
I don't believe in that.
Right, okay. What else?
I don't believe God decides our future
You don't believe God decides our future?
without prayer.
Without prayer.
With prayer, we will.
With prayer, we will.
decide our future.
Okay. Okay. What else have I got?
I don't believe we're separate, us and God.
I'm sorry?
I don't believe we're separate. You know, God is there and
Right, we're all one big, happy, creative system.
I think we're,
Yeah.
God's created us. There's a part of God is, know ye not that ye are gods. You know, there's a
Yeah.
separate divine in all of us. It's not a separate thing.
Right. Yeah, yeah, it's a creative thing. It's a creative whatever this is. Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah. Yeah, and what else?
I don't believe God just created us.
Okay. You don't believe God's created us?
In this density, He's created more than us. She or he are it.
Yeah. Okay. Don't you have an interesting bunch of thoughts? Aren't you fascinating? You wonder how, see, political decisions can't get made. Look at this. Go ahead.
Randomness, purposelessness.
I don't know who's talking to me.
To your right.
Oh, right. It's randomness and purposelessness.
Yeah, I don't believe in those things. Like as if there's no reason for all this. Some people call it existentialism or some random roll of the dice caused all of this. And
Really?
I don't believe in that.
Oh,
That's what we
okay.
don't believe in.
All right, you don't believe in that. Right, okay. Okay.
I have no faith in organised religion, man-made religions.
Yeah, here. Okay. Okay.
I don't believe that God is something that we can understand.
Neither do I. Yeah. Yeah. I think we can observe patterns. We can observe patterns. But there's no understanding in terms of making logical sense, of fitting it into the human form of logic the way we have structured logic on our earth. So that it explains, I think that's the story of all the great masters, like Buddha, like Jesus, like these great masters. Their theme was, don't go there. Don't go there, because that's the story of Job, that's the story of Jesus, that's the story of Buddha, it's all an illusion. That's what you need to understand. This is all an illusion. The journey is pull your soul out of the illusions of your life. Never mind trying to understand why they're an illusion, or just trust me, it's an illusion. And in Jesus' his whole story is, look, these illusions, if you get caught, you will suffer like being crucified. You're going to crucify yourself. So get out of the illusions and don't get attached. Forgive people, because you'll lose your soul in the journey of learn to turn the other cheek. Look, I'll go through it for you. I'll go through all the things through which you lose your soul. I'll be betrayed. I'll be humiliated. I'll do all the things that your pride causes you to lose your spirit in. I'll be abandoned by my friends. I will go through all of this. These are all the excuses you give yourself that allow you to hate people, that allow you to resent them, that allow you to say, but you don't understand. It was so awful. And I get to resent this and be in therapy for decades because someone did this to me. I'll go through all of it and then show you in the end. You pull your spirit back and you take it with you. No matter what you experienced, take your spirit with you. Otherwise, you're going to hang on a cross. Because that's his story. Otherwise, it's you on that cross. You. Because you keep asking, why? The unanswerable question. Why me? Why did this happen to me? Because it did. It's as simple as that. And if it isn't you, it'll be someone else. And if it isn't you, next time it'll be my turn. Then it'll be your turn. Then it'll be your turn. Because that's the way it rolls down here. We all get our turn. We all get our turn at these unfair things. Because that's the way it is. One day it's your turn, the next day it's my turn. One day you get your car stolen, the next day I get my car stolen. That's how it's done here. One lifetime I'm a thief, one year you're a thief. We all get our roles. That's how it's done here. So we all kind of refine our souls so we finally get it. It's not personal, it's just the name of the game. We will never understand, well, how come you set up this planet like Jesus? This is the planet of law. Just stick to the rules. And the rules are, look, this is all about balance. The moment I'm too angry, I have to go back to balance. This and that. It's all about balance. Yes?
Do you believe that when you're out of balance, there's certain things that you can do, like charitable acts or good things that you can do to bring yourself back into balance?
Yes. Are you kidding? I think, here's the thing. I think you are so powerful, that each of you is so powerful you have no idea. You have no idea how powerful every word you use is, including what you say to yourself. We're going to go through the power of your language tomorrow. The words you say to yourself are so powerful. How you think is so powerful. What you say to others. Every single, you have no idea. The impact of one kindness. You have no idea. You have no idea. And in this time, because we are now living in the age of energy, which is the age of grace, you have to think of you don't have to, but you should think of yourself as living in this hologram. You're not a flatlander anymore. We don't live in this day by day by day, year by year. We now reside in a hologram in which you think of everything as happening simultaneously. So that you no longer think, well, that was yesterday and this is tomorrow. That, like Buddha would say, is an illusion. Even that's an illusion. But this is, what I'm now talking about is way up here. This is the kind of thinking that someone who lives down here could not comprehend. Like I couldn't say to my dad, Daddy, this is a future life I'm dealing with, so I need an aspirin, okay? My father was not in the minefield to be able to deal with the idea that maybe I was dealing with a past life, future life collision. Are you with me? Or that I threw out one manuscript because I encountered a saint and I needed to write a different book. This was not the reality my Marine father came from. Are we together on this? So as you proceed up, the types of experiences you have shift from coming from a day-to-day calendar, and they start coming from a hologram mentality that says all things happen simultaneously. So that something existing that you experience is as likely to be coming from a life yet to be lived and a life that was lived. So that this experience you have is because something is in the formation. So that this is happening because it's a necessary dynamic to a life that you will incarnate into. And it's balancing something that was out of whack from this life, and the meeting point of balance is in this life. Now that is a very high voltage concept that for when you were living in your first floor and your whole idea was settling everything with what's on the table today. How did this happen here today? I just want an explanation for this today. I'm not interested in yesterday. What are you talking about? And the idea of another, no, I just want to know who made this mess today. This mind could never comprehend your life on the 8th floor. Could not. Nor could this person, you on your first floor, ever think, maybe if I did an act of kindness and closed my eyes and let the grace of that travel on my hologram like an internet and dwell in that person's energy and send grace, I can do something to balance.
You know, as you recognize your strength,
Mm-hmm.
if you talk about the personal and the impersonal, I
Mm.
think part of the challenge is trying to keep it impersonal, because as you experience these things and you realize your power, and I do this act of kindness towards you, I can't then think, oh wow, like I'm so amazing. I have to be able to do it in humility and not let it get to my head to think that, wow, I'm such an amazing person.
Right.
You kind of have to keep it below shoulder. Don't let it get to your head, because then
You stay off your radar. Stay off your own radar. Yeah. I mean, you know, one of the great teachings in all monasteries is, you know, what is humility about? It's like you have to stay humble. In other words, you know, in all monastic traditions, there's a teaching you have to stay humble. You trust me when I tell you that you can't fool heaven. There isn't any skill that will awaken in you at all. At all. Nothing will awaken in you, and everything will shut down if your pride gets the better of you. You can't lie to heaven. Your soul will shut it down. One of the great teachings, lead me not into temptation, and I don't care what tradition you get that form of prayer in. But that idea of walk humbly on the earth, stay off the radar. If you need to sign, put your signature on everything you touch, then you're not ready. You are not ready you're not ready for the major leagues in terms of walk humbly. I mean, you don't advertise. If you were a directee of mine and you said, I want to go out and heal people, I would like, did I hear you say you have ambition? Did I hear that word come out of you? I would send you to the kitchen to peel potatoes until I never heard that out of you again. Ever. And until heaven drafted you, until heaven came for you in the room, and your life itself shifted organically, and suddenly you found yourself called because your life took you away, and it would happen. It would happen that events would come and da-da-da, and then I would know it's time. Because it had nothing to do with you. And then I would know, now, she's ready. Now. As soon as it didn't involve you is when it's right. Just like if you look at your life, everything that is hard that's happened to you, everything that hurt the most, you had a hand in planning. Somehow, you could track it to something other than the things that were organic, of a death, of this. I'm not talking about that. But if it's personal, somehow we had a hand in it somewhere, somehow. A voice, of this, a word, a language, a mood, a this, a that. Our signature is in it somewhere. And all the best things that ever happened to us happened just like that. Look at all the people who love you. Look at all the people who love you. You had no hand in meeting someone who happened to just love you to pieces. Where was your handiwork in that? Did you wake up in the morning, pick up a phone book and say, where's someone who loves me? I'm going to call them. Life brought them to you. Life. Where you met your good friends. Where you met someone who just thinks you are the most wonderful person in the world. Friends who adore you. Who think, I am so glad you're in my life. I am so glad, I can't tell you how glad I am you're in my life. You think you just sort of conjured that up? But when the time is right, the universe fills your heart and fills your energy field with people who love you. You can't make that happen. I'm sorry, but you don't have that kind of power. And you don't have that kind of power where someone looks at you and thinks, I think you're so special I can hardly stand my body. Really, I can't stand my body. And you enchant me. I'm enchanted. This is me, enchanted. And I just didn't see you coming. I have to sit down. I'm so enchanted. You don't, that is so spectacular. You can't make that happen. You see? But when you're ready, somehow you meet people that, wow, my heart's ready for you. My heart's ready for you. It just turns out I have space. How lucky is that? It just turns out I have space. Perfect. See? It's like that. So that's why one of the great prayers is, keep me humble, God, because I don't want to fall on my face and I don't want you to push me. So it's just you and I make a deal. Let me read you a prayer before I let you go. Let me see. I close your eyes. I breathe with all life. I am one with all creation. My thoughts and emotions belong to everyone. They blend into the grid of all life. I cannot comprehend this truth, but I know that this is truth. We all share this earth. Nothing could be more preposterous than to imagine that I am safe from some catastrophe while others are not. My energy is everywhere, in every country I've visited, and in every town and city, and in every home, and in every conversation I have ever had. My energy is in a million, perhaps tens of millions, if not billions of places by now. How do I stay mindful of this truth about myself? That everything I say and touch and see and think and feel continues on and on because I set a spark of energy into motion. No wonder the great mystics finally surrendered to you, Lord, wanting you to take charge of this power of life you've given us. They did not surrender out of fear or weakness, but out of awe. Hover over me, Lord. Keep me ever mindful of the power I hold and every spark of life I generate, from the smallest thought to the most courageous act. Amen. Okay, cherubs. I'll see you in the morning.